Welcome to part 3 of the YouTube series for Infor CRM mobile development. In part 2, we cover the basic setup of the Argo sample customization and how it's deployed by Application Architect. In today's video, we're going to dive deeper into the application lifecycle and customization API. So let's get started. The first thing I want to cover is this application flow diagram. So this is available in the Argo Sales Logics repository called diagram.txt. So if you notice here on the left, we have an index bootstrap, and it's requiring an application and a configuration. So let's go ahead and dive into this a little bit and see what this means. So if we go and we open our index.aspx, if you remember from the last video, this is where your customization code gets inserted. And what's inside of your built customization script is a set of defines. So this is an AMD asynchronous module definition define. This is the module ID, and then there's the code that belongs to that module. So your JavaScript's loaded, and these are registered with AMD at this point. So now you notice there's a user control index body. So this is kind of where the bootstrap function gets called. And you can see there's a configuration passed in. So if we go back to the diagram, we can see application and configuration are called by the bootstrap. And where's the configuration coming from? So this is a server-side C# snippet, and it's passing in a configuration property. So if we go to the code behind and we look at this configuration property, it's enumerating all of the production.js files within the configuration folder in the deployed application. So let's go ahead and open up the inet pub directory. So it's going to go into the configuration, and it's going to pull all the production.js files. So that's going to be an array of configuration files. So let's just keep that in mind. That's what this property is. So it's injecting that into the bootstrap call. So now let's go ahead and go to the bootstrap function itself. So here's the bootstrap function, and it takes an object, and that's what we've passed into it here. So here's the configuration and the application referenced in our diagram. So let's go ahead and see how they're used. So if we scroll down here, the first thing that happens is there's a window require. So this is an AMD require. The application, which in our case, this is just the CRM application. And then it's adding additional modules for those configuration files that we've enumerated. So if we go back to the diagram, we can see those two files are required. And then within the configuration itself, it's calling new application module in the modules array. So let's go ahead and look at that real quick. So if we go into the Argo sample development.js, you could also use production.js. So we're pulling in the base configuration, and then in that base configuration, we're pushing in our module. So this is where new is getting called for your application module. So if you're doing a customization, and you want to do any custom logic in the constructor or your own lifecycle, this is where you're getting instantiated. Okay, so at this point, let's go back to the bootstrap. So let's go ahead and see where application's used. You can see right here, we're calling new, so this is a new CRM application. And it's passing in the application configurations as well. which are up here. So let's just summarize real quick. We've had the index ASPX enumerate all of the configurations as an array. Those are passed in here, so they're required. Your application module's been instantiated, and that's been passed into the application's constructor. So now the application lifecycle is going to start. So first, activate's going to get called. That's going to call window.app, and it's going to set the application instance to this variable. And this will be useful later on when we're in the developer console. We can say app dot, and we can actually access the application instance, so we can access the views and other application state. After that, it's going to call init, which in turn is going to start several init methods. And the one to be concerned with here is init modules. So init modules is going to go through the modules array, which is where your application module would live, and it's going to call init on each application module. So this is going to start the life cycle for each application module, and it's going to fire off several load events or load functions where you hook into to register views and such. So we'll go ahead and look at that real quick. So if we go into Argos SDK application, there's an init module, so you can see it's iterating each module and it's calling init. And if we look at our Argo sample application module, we can see it's inheriting from the Argos application module. So let's go ahead and look at that base class in Argos SDK. So here we are in the application module in Argos SDK. So this is the base application module that everyone inherits from. So this is the init method that will get called. So we can set an instance of the application to this.application, and then here are those lifecycle methods getting called. So it's calling load app state promises, load customizations, load toolbars, and load views. So back in the Argo sample application module, we simply create those, inherit those functions. So here's load views. You can see we register the views that we want there. And now before we talk about the customization API, I just want to quickly go over what a layout is, because I will be mentioning it quite a bit in the next section. So if we go to Argo Sales Logics, we're going to go into Source, Views, and we're going to open the Account Detail view. And on line 117, there's going to be a Create Layout function. And this is returning an array of objects, and these are going to describe what fields there are, what SData property they're bound to, and so forth. There's also sometimes there can be actions and icons and stuff like that. So when we talk about layouts, we're talking about this array that is returned from create layout. So now let's cover the customization API a little bit. So there's two steps. The first one is to register the customization, and then when the view itself loads, it's going to get the registered customization and apply it to the layout. So if we go down here to line 118 in the Argo sample application module, you can see we're calling register customization. And ultimately what this does, the application module calls the application.register customization, and it's going to assign it to this.customizations on the application object. And if you remember earlier from the application lifecycle, we set a global app variable that we can use in the console. So what we'll do to inspect this registration, we're going to go ahead and open Argo Sales Logics. We're going to open a command prompt, and we're going to start that development server. We're going to run localhost 8000. We're going to go into products, Argo Sales Logics, and we're going to run index dev sample. We're going to hit F12 to open the developer console. And if you see, app is defined globally. And we want app.customizations. So you can inspect here and you can see list, hashtag queries, opportunity list is registered, and it looks like there's 4 of them. So you can see the spec as we registered it right here. So the second part of the customization lifecycle would be when the view loads, it's going to get the registered customization and apply it to the layout. So if we go into list base in Argos SDK, you can see here's the hashtag queries, and it's calling this create customized layout mixin function, and then it's passing in the base layout, and this is the array layout that has not been customized or modified yet. And create customized layout is going to call compile customized layout. What this is going to do is it's going to iterate the whole layout, and it's going to iterate each registered customization for that layout or for that customization set that it's currently on. And there's a set of operations we have defined so you can remove, replace, modify, or insert. And how it knows which row you want to modify is it looks at this at value in your customization spec. So if we go back to Argos sample, you can see we've simply defined at.true, and then we put a comment here that says insert anywhere. So we don't really care where this is going to insert. So the first row is going to return true, and it's going to insert this value into the layout. At can also be a function. So if we scroll down a little bit, let's find an example right here. So the function will pass in the row of the current layout, and then it'll allow you to specify if you want to modify or insert at this particular row. So it gives you a lot of control of where you want the value inserted or modified at in a particular layout. So if you want to add a field to a detail page, maybe after a particular field, maybe after the account name, you could check if the account name is the current row, you can insert after that. So it gives you a lot of flexibility there. And we can see that here at this expand is either looking at a value or a function. So if this is a function, it's going to invoke that function and pass in the row. And if it returns true, it will go ahead and check what the modifier is or what the operation is and go ahead and do that for you. And that's going to be all for part 3. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.